March 18th, 1925. A humid spring morning in America's heartland. No radar, no warnings. By afternoon, a black wall of wind had already killed families in Missouri, while teachers, miners, and children went about their day, oblivious to disaster. The deadliest tornado in United States history. 695 people killed, 219 miles in just over 3 hours. How did one storm evade every safeguard and rewrite the rules of survival? This is how a normal day became America's greatest weather tragedy. Spring in the Midwest, 1925. The sun rose on fields already damp with humidity, the air thick and oddly still. Temperatures climbed into the mid-60s, unusual warmth for March. Farmers paused in their chores, uneasy at the strange yellow-green tint overhead. Dogs whined and hid beneath porches. Horses refused the harness, stamping and tossing their heads. In towns strung along dirt roads, the only warning was a feeling in the bones, an old-timer's hunch that something was wrong with the sky. But in the roaring 20s, faith in progress ran deep. Model T Fords rattled down gravel lanes, their engines straining at 45 miles per hour. Coal miners changed shifts beneath the earth. Children filed into wooden schoolhouses, lunch pails swinging, teachers calling roll. The world seemed solid, routines unbreakable. No one expected disaster. There were no sirens, no radio alerts, no red flags from the Weather Bureau. In fact, the word tornado was forbidden in official forecasts. The government feared panic more than storms. Instead, they spoke of severe local disturbances, as if a new phrase could hold back the wind. Barometers in kitchen windows dropped fast, needles dipping lower by the hour. Farmers noted the numbers, but with no way to know what they meant, life went on. The only clues came from the land itself. Birds fell silent. Cattle pressed against fences, restless. In the towns and on the farms, people trusted their eyes and ears, and both said nothing was coming. After all, most had never seen a tornado, and few believed one could strike so suddenly with no warning at all. By midday, the sky pressed down, heavy and expectant. Children played at recess, miners dug coal, and mothers hung laundry in the breeze. Somewhere to the west, a line of clouds thickened and darkened. No one knew that in a matter of minutes, the ordinary would vanish. The warmth, the quiet, and the routines of a Wednesday morning were about to be swept away by something faster than any car, stronger than any storm remembered. The stage was set, but no one recognized the signs. The Midwest stood exposed, waiting for a disaster it could neither see nor outrun. At 1:01 p.m., northwest of Ellington, Missouri, the tornado touched down. There was no warning. There was no twisting funnel, no warning shape in the sky. Just a boiling black wall, wide as a city block, rolling across the fields. In minutes, 4 people were dead. One farmer's barn vanished, livestock flung into trees, the ground littered with splintered lumber. Survivors later described a sound like 1,000 freight trains, louder than anything they had ever heard. The earth itself seemed to tremble as the storm passed. 9 minutes later, at 1:10 p.m., Annapolis lay in its path. The town counted just 300 souls, nestled among the Ozark Hills. In seconds, 90% of it was swept away. Bodies were found in open fields, thrown hundreds of yards from where they had stood. Among them, a farmer's wife, her arms wrapped tight around her infant, both lifeless. The Red Cross report would later note that she was still clutching the child when they found her. The tornado did not pause. 4 more people died in Annapolis. Those who lived spoke of the ground shaking, the air turning black, and a roar that drowned out every other sound. The storm moved on, devouring everything in its path. Soon it reached the German farming hamlets of Biela and Frona. Families there saw only a dark mass on the horizon. Some thought it was smoke from a distant fire. By the time they realized it was moving toward them, it was too late. Houses lifted from their foundations, barns torn apart, churches that had stood for generations flattened in seconds. In Biela, 2 people died, their names later recorded in the county ledger. The tornado scattered debris across the fields, leaving nothing but bare earth where homes had stood. By now, the tornado had been on the ground for 40 minutes, 4 times longer than most storms survived. It showed no signs of weakening. The black wall crossed the Mississippi River, uprooting trees and tossing them into the water. Eyewitnesses on the Illinois side would later say it looked like the end of the world was rolling toward them. The monster was just getting started. At 2:30 in the afternoon, the tornado struck Gorham, Illinois. The town had barely 500 people. In less than a minute, Gorham ceased to exist. Every house, every store, every school, gone. The storm tore through with such force that bodies were found wrapped around splintered trees. A mother and her 4 children died together, their home reduced to a pile of broken boards. 34 people lost their lives, 7% of the entire town. 37 children were left without parents, their families swept away in seconds. Survivors clawed through the ruins with their bare hands, searching for anyone who might still be alive. There was no help coming, no rescue team on the way. Gorham's children became orphans in the space of a single afternoon, their futures rewritten by a storm no one saw coming. 4 minutes later, the tornado roared into Murfreesboro. With 12,000 residents, it was the largest city in the tornado's path. The black wall was now nearly a mile wide, moving at 73 miles per hour. Most people never saw it. There were no sirens, no warnings, only the sudden darkness and a roar that drowned out every other sound. The tornado tore through 152 city blocks, flattening homes, churches, and businesses. Schools collapsed with children still inside. At the Longfellow School, 17 children died when the roof caved in and the walls gave way. Across the city, gas lines ruptured and fires broke out, turning the ruins into an inferno. Flames leapt from block to block, igniting what little remained. Trapped survivors burned alive in the rubble, their cries lost beneath the howling wind and the crackle of fire. Murfreesboro's hospitals were destroyed. The injured, hundreds of them, lay in the streets, waiting for help that would not arrive until morning. 8,000 people were left homeless. The dead were everywhere, their bodies pulled from the wreckage and laid out in rows. In a single day, 234 people died in Murfreesboro, more than any city has ever lost to a tornado in American history. The scale of destruction defied belief. The city's gas infrastructure, meant to power homes and businesses, now fueled the flames that consumed entire neighborhoods. Firefighters and volunteers tried to stop the blaze, but with water mains broken and roads blocked by debris, there was nothing they could do. By nightfall, Murfreesboro was a wasteland of ashes and twisted metal, its people stunned and grieving, surrounded by ruin on every side. As the tornado pressed on, the death toll climbed higher. Gorham's orphans wandered among the debris, searching for familiar faces. In Murfreesboro, families dug through the ashes, hoping to find their children alive. The tornado had already killed more than 200 in a single city, and the storm was far from over. The death toll kept rising as the day turned toward evening. At 2:38 in the afternoon, the tornado barreled into DeSoto. The town counted just over 600 people. On that Wednesday, 125 children were gathered inside the wooden schoolhouse, their voices echoing off thin walls as the storm approached. The sky outside turned black. Teachers hurried students to their desks, but there was no time for drills or prayers. Survivor Agnes McAdams later remembered the sound, like a dozen airplanes diving at once. Willa Ward, a teacher, shouted for her students to get under their desks. She threw herself over 3 children as the building began to shake. The tornado struck with full force, tearing the roof from the school and collapsing the walls in an instant. Children were thrown through the air, some landing 100 feet from where their desks had been. The structure itself exploded, splintered boards and glass raining down. When the wind eased, the school was gone. Parents and neighbors rushed to the site, clawing through the ruins with their bare hands. They found bodies pinned beneath beams, children wrapped in coats, some still clutching books. 33 children died inside that school, over a quarter of those present. 88 more were injured, many suffering wounds they would carry for life. One teacher survived by using her own body as a shield. The children beneath her lived. The ones beside her did not. The town lost 69 people in those few minutes. For DeSoto, the school disaster was a wound that would never truly heal. The wooden construction so common in rural Illinois offered no protection against winds estimated at over 300 miles per hour. There were no storm cellars beneath the classrooms, no reinforced walls. The building simply came apart. That afternoon, 30% of the children in that school died. The survivors, many just 7 or 8 years old, would remember the darkness and the roar for the rest of their lives. Today, meteorologists look back at DeSoto and see a tragedy that could have been prevented. The tornado that struck was an EF5 by modern standards, rare but not impossible. What made the difference was warning time. In 1925, there was none. No radar, no sirens, not even a word from the Weather Bureau. The tornado was invisible, wrapped in rain, moving faster than any car. By the time anyone saw it, it was already on top of them. In the decades since, technology has changed everything. Doppler radar now tracks storms in real time. The average warning before a tornado strikes is 13 minutes. That is 13 minutes to get to a basement, to leave a classroom, to save a life. The lesson of DeSoto is written in the names of those lost, a reminder that warnings matter, that science saves lives. The tornado's path through DeSoto ended childhoods in seconds, but it also forced a reckoning. Every siren that sounds today is an answer to what happened there and to the children who never came home. At 2:55 in the afternoon, the tornado barreled into West Frankfort, a coal town where life revolved around the Orient No. 2 mine. Hundreds of men were deep underground, swinging picks and shovels in the dark, the weight of the earth pressing above. They were used to danger, mine collapses, gas leaks, black lung, but on this day, the mine was the safest place in Illinois. Overhead, the tornado tore the town apart. The mine's surface buildings, including an 80-foot tipple weighing hundreds of tons, were ripped from their foundations and flung aside. Homes vanished, entire neighborhoods flattened in seconds. When the shift ended, nearly 500 miners rode the cage to the surface and stepped out into silence. Where their streets and houses had stood, there was only wreckage. For 127 of those men, the walk home led to nothing but splintered boards and empty lots. Their families were missing, their lives erased while they worked below. The irony was bitter. The very job that claimed so many lives in ordinary times had spared them from the deadliest tornado in American memory. Above ground, 450 people in the West Frankfort area died, wives, children, neighbors, while the miners, blackened with coal dust, wandered through the ruins in shock. Oral histories recall men calling names as they searched through debris. Some found nothing but a shoe, a photograph, a broken lamp. The town's strength, built on coal and hard labor, was no defense against a storm that cared nothing for skill or bravery. Survival came down to luck and the thickness of rock between a man and the sky. The tornado pressed on, leaving behind a place forever divided, those spared by the mine and those lost above. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the tornado crossed into Indiana. Griffin, a farming town of barely 50 people, stood in its path. The black wall swept through, leaving nothing behind. Half the town's population was killed in minutes. A family of 7 was found together in the ruins of their home. Their names were entered into the county coroner's log, but for many others, the records would never be complete. The tornado did not spare a single building. Houses, barns, the small church were flattened, their timbers scattered across the fields. Survivors crawled out from debris, dazed and bleeding, searching for neighbors in the silence that followed. By 4:30 in the afternoon, after 3.5 hours on the ground and 219 miles of destruction, the tornado finally lifted northeast of Petersburg. The storm left behind a scar of wreckage stretching across 3 states. The official count would say 695 dead, but the truth was almost certainly higher. Many black residents, day laborers, and transient workers were never named in the reports. In Indiana alone, 71 people died, and entire communities vanished from the map. As darkness fell, rain began to pour over the ruined towns. There was no electricity, no running water. There was no help coming from outside. Survivors lit lanterns and gathered what they could: shovels, farm tools, their own hands. Through the night, they dug through the rubble, calling out for loved ones, hoping for a voice in reply. Bodies were laid out in open fields, wrapped in sheets when coffins ran out. With every hour, the number of dead grew. The living, soaked and exhausted, huddled beside the remains of their homes, keeping watch over the bodies of their families. In the glow of lanterns and the steady rain, the scale of loss became clear. No one in the Midwest would ever forget that night. Every tornado siren and emergency alert today is a legacy of that silent afternoon. Warning systems now reach nearly every American, because 695 people never heard a warning at all. Disaster's randomness remains, but ignorance is not inevitable. The line between safety and tragedy is thinner than we think, and still written by how prepared we choose to be. Thanks for watching.